as Iran loses its proxies, its national support, and even its grip on the region as a whole. Iranian spy schemes still continue. The most recent being a Danish national arrested on suspicion of gathering information on Jewish locations and individuals in Berlin for Iranian intelligence. However, Iran's embassy in Berlin has rejected these accusations. So for more, we're joined now by Behnam Ben Taleblu, a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy, is joining us from Washington, D.C. Behnam, great to have you with us on The Rundown, as always.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
Now, as Iran's proxies are facing setbacks across the region, from Hezbollah's exposure in Lebanon, setbacks in Syria and Iraq, and now even Operation Rising Lion, is Tehran leaning harder into these clandestine operations in Europe and beyond because it's losing its grip on the region? Is this something that we should expect more of in the future?
Well, not just because it's losing its grip on the region, but because it still is looking to wash away blood with blood. It's still trying to strike at Israel. It's still trying to strike at soft targets. It's still trying to go after America. It's still trying to go after everything that the West cherishes and holds dear. And with the evolution that we've seen of Iran's proxy and terror forces in the Middle East into becoming something of a more militarized fighting force, something of like a non-state militia with state-level military capabilities. Take a look at Hezbollah, take a look at the Houthis, for example. What you've seen in transnational terrorist trends, particularly in the West, when you look at the European continent or America, for example, is the rise of two things. One, the support for lone wolf radicals and lone wolf terrorists. Traditionally, this is more a phenomenon on the Sunni side of the street of terrorism rather than Shia side of the street. And then when it comes to the state, the Islamic Republic, they've been working with transnational criminal syndicates. In the US, for example, anything from drug cartels to Eastern European criminal gangs to, Canadian biker gangs. So I fully expect the Islamic Republic to rely more and more on these sorts of criminal networks or pay to slay operations for intelligence and for future terror operations.
Well, off of that, that's kind of my next question, but how involved exactly is Iran's Ministry of Intelligence or the IRGC in directing these exact kind of operations abroad? Are they these centralized efforts, or we're also seeing more of these fragmented cells acting independently like you just described?
Well, I don't know if the cells are fragmented and acting independently, but there's a certain series of individual touch points between the ministry that you mentioned, the Ministry of Intelligence and Security, as well as the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Intelligence Organization. And we have to admit that these two have been at each other's throats inside the country about how best to proceed for a very long time now when it comes to both domestic and foreign threats. But abroad, they do look to cultivate assets. This is traditional espionage work, by the way. But the MO, when you look at the evolution from lone wolf terror to these transnational criminal syndicates, is to let the locals do the work. It's not necessarily believed to be as directed. They would simply say, here is the target, here's the payment, go after it. And this way, there isn't that much of an evidentiary basis tying that local actor back to the foreign patron.
All right, Behnam, let's touch quickly on Iran's nuclear ambitions, because Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, in an interview to CBS News, he said it's going to take some time and assurances from the United States until Tehran is ready to re-engage in any talks when it comes to its nuclear program. But what happens until then? Iran restarts enriching uranium with pretty much no international checks?
Well, that's really the art of the deal for the Iranians here, isn't it? That they always want time, they always want assurances, but they're never willing to play by anyone else's clock, and they're certainly never willing to give an assurance about, peaceful use of nuclear energy to anyone else when it's really worth it. I mean, just look at what they're doing right now with respect to the IAEA. Yes, post-strike, the regime is limiting the monitoring significantly. In fact, the Parliament and the Guardian Council have put forward legislation to actually suspend IAEA and Iran, IAEA's activities in Iran and visits to these sites. But ultimately here, this is a regime that is looking to find a way to rebuild, or dare I say, build back better. And it's trying to create the political space for building back better by still, even post-strike, dangling the idea of talks. And as much as it dangles the idea of talks, this is a regime that can walk and chew gum at the same time, and certainly will be trying to take out whatever it can from the rubble of Fordo, certainly will be trying to both politically, weaponize what is left of its fissile material stocks in places like Esfahan, for example, that could be used to secure the regime at some bargaining point down the line.
All right, Behnam Ben Taleblu, great to have you with us on I24 News as always.
Thank you.